If you're looking for the best Sonic fan games and related indie games of 2023, look no further. I went through almost 100 indie game demos at this year's Sonic Amateur Games Expo, played a few dozen of them, and found the next 10 games to be the best of the best. Whether you're looking for classic Sonic physics, high-octane 3D action, or something in between, this list has you covered. Number 10, Mega Man X in Sonic Blasting Adventure. Mega Man X in Sonic Blasting Adventure is a remake of Sonic 3D Blast 5, Sonic Adventure 7, and Sonic Adventure 8, but with X and Zero as the main characters instead of Sonic. And if you've never heard of any of those, it's because they're all weird bootleg Game Boy games that were made by some random person like 20 years ago. This new version, made by Gustavo Casanado, is surprisingly well made. I'm pretty sure I tried some of these bootleg Game Boy Sonic games from forever ago, and they were all pretty terrible. But this is good. Like, legitimately good. If you're playing with a gamepad, the controls can be mapped however you'd like at the start of the game. X and Zero move exactly like you'd expect them to move. No weird physics or anything like that. It just feels like you'd expect Mega Man to feel in a Sonic game, even if it is a remake of weird bootleg Sonic games. I'm not sure why Gustavo picked these random bootleg Sonic games to remake of all things, but I'm kinda glad he did, because I feel like that allowed him to focus more on the important things, like how the game handles. And he calls them remakes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he took more than a few creative liberties when it comes to the level design, because there's no way these games could have gone from something that terrible to this solid with just a one-to-one remake. But maybe that's just my ignorance talking. Maybe I need to go back and give Sonic 3D Blast 5, Sonic Adventure 7, and Sonic Adventure 8 another try. Or maybe not. Number 9, Edelsuch. Edelsuch? It's like Mega Man, but with a cute little witch girl. On the game's download page, they describe it as a Rockman-style, Dojin-ish action platformer game, where you play as Cecilia Wonderwand, a mage apprentice who finds herself in need to save the world from the rot. Edelsuch, or however it's pronounced, feels good to play, good level design. I did run into a somewhat game-breaking bug while playing.
Oh gosh. The heck? She wasn't this hard last time.
But one of the developers, Shiro Nuko, actually left a comment on one of my Sage Live videos and informed me that the bug's already been fixed, so that's cool. That's a great response on the developer's end. If they're that responsive to audience feedback, I'm sure there are more great things ahead for Edelsuch. One day I'll learn how to pronounce that. Number 8, Bunning Gun. You're a bun and you got a gun. Just like Jazz Jackrabbit, but this time in 3D. Bunning Gun sorta plays like a 3D Sonic game, but instead of just getting to the end of the level, you're tasked with finding all of the bats. At least in the first level. Not sure if that's what you're gonna do in all the levels, but that's at least what you do in the demo. Then you fight a giant snake. So that's cool. 8 out of 10, would recommend. It took me a while to realize that you have a bat friend who tells you where to go next, so for a long time I was just wandering around aimlessly trying to find the last couple of bats. I'm really glad they have this little navigator guy, because it would be impossible without him. The game just maybe needs something that tells you that he navigates for you. Maybe there was something and I missed it? Not sure, that could be on me. Number 7, Sonic and the Gunslinger. This one has voice acting. I love indie games with voice acting. Sonic and the Gunslinger is a Sonic Roboblast mod inspired by the Sonic Storybook games with a Wild West theme. Fang the Sniper, or I guess Fang the Hunter as he's called now, is kind of the poster child of the mod, but unfortunately he was my least favorite character to play as. It's a cool idea, a slower character that's got a pop gun. You can plan your shots and jump around on his tail, but I think he's just a little too slow. I like the tail bounce technique because it reminds me of jumping on your cane in the DuckTales games, but otherwise he's just not that fun to move around as. Sonic, on the other hand, is super fun to play as, and Rouge is playable. And she's fun to play as too. It sort of reminds me of Sonic Adventure 2, where like, most of the game is fun, but then there are a few characters that just aren't as fun to play as. Number 6, Looney Balloony. I talked about this one last year, so I won't spend too much time on it, but just for a quick recap, Looney Balloony is a unique flying side-scrolling platformer. Kind of like if they were to make a full fleshed out sequel to Balloon Fight. It has wonderfully charming graphics, a fantastic Genesis-esque soundtrack, great level design, solid gameplay mechanics, and the music in level 1 reminds me of A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes. Number 5, Sonic Colors visual novel. I actually wasn't going to try this one out until the developer Alex McGee popped into one of my streams. I thought it was, as the name implies, a visual novel adaptation of Sonic Colors. I thought it was just going to be the cutscenes from Sonic Colors without any of the gameplay, which, in my opinion, were the worst part of Sonic Colors. But this is so much more. You know the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog? This year's April Fool's Day release from the Sonic the Hedgehog team? It was really good. And even though this is just a demo, it's just as good. Great art, fun minigames, even more variety than the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Just a lot of overall polish. I'm really excited for the full version of this. Number 4, Mushroom Kingdom Fusion. This is another one I talked about last year. Mushroom Kingdom Fusion is a wild mashup of characters crammed into a 2D Mario game with surprisingly fun and accurate mechanics. MKF combines the gameplay of classic Mario games like Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, with everything from other platformers like Mega Man, Sonic, and Castlevania, to games from completely different genres like Doom, Halo, Tetris, and Pac-Man. MKF features 17 playable characters, over 200 levels spanned across 9 worlds, a wide variety of weapons and power-ups, hundreds of enemies, over 80 bosses, full controller support, and if that sounds like a lot to you, it really is, because this game has been in development for 15 years. So yeah, give this one a go if any of that sounds appealing to you. Number 3, Sonic Horizons. I thought I tried this one last year because the name sounded familiar, but I wasn't quite sure because it looks different than anything I'd seen before. Turns out, yeah, I did play a demo for this last year. If you saw last year's video, this was actually in with my honorable mentions for the year. I stated that it was a solid tech demo for the time, but there just wasn't quite enough to judge yet. Well, I'm happy to say they've come a long way since then. Coming directly from the Sage 23 demo page, Sonic Horizons is an open zone fan game inspired by Sonic Frontiers. Built from the ground up using the custom Blur framework, Horizons aims to take the foundation of the open zone formula that Frontiers established and expand on it in another direction, focusing more on physics-based platforming and exploration. Horizons gives you the opportunity to think outside the box and forge your own path as you aid Sonic in his journey. Horizons features mechanics returning from previous games, such as the spin dash, the drop dash, and the bounce, as well as new mechanics like the wall dash, which lets you parkour run on walls. The various techniques work in tandem with the large, semi-open world level design to allow you to search for collectibles and other interactables, such as portals and other activities, putting your skills to the test to maximize your rewards. I had a lot of fun with this one, but I did get stuck at one point and I couldn't figure out where to go. Number 2, Bbap the Bbap. I had a really hard time choosing between this and the number 1 game on this list. But ultimately, I'm a Sonic fan at heart, and Bbap just isn't very Sonic-y. That being said, it is a fantastic little collectathon inspired by games like Spyro the Dragon or Banjo-Kazooie, with some new mechanics like a weapon durability system, almost like the one featured in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. In Bbap, you explore colorful worlds and talk to a variety of charming NPCs, using your surroundings to aid in combat and using shields to block and parry enemy attacks. Explore different worlds, collect the different things, help people out, you know the drill. It's just a really solid, classic 3D collectathon. Unfortunately, there's no voice acting at this point in time. I do feel like a bit of voice acting would go a long way in a game like this. The music so far is also not particularly memorable, but everything else gets an A+ from me. As is tradition on the channel, here are a few honorable mentions before we get to number 1. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Tetris. I was really excited for this one because I love Mean Bean Machine, or Puyo Puyo, and I love Tetris. And I was excited to see how they'd incorporate the two things into one game. I thought maybe it would be like Puyo Puyo Tetris or something. But this is pretty much just Tetris with a different coat of paint. And not even Tetris with some of the more modern features, like being able to store a Tetramino. Just plain old school Tetris with a Sonic skin. Not bad by any means, I still had fun playing it, it just didn't do too much to set itself apart either. Bub's Big Blowout. This one got so close to making the list, but unfortunately it just didn't quite make the cut. Seriously, if none of the other games on this list sound appealing to you, or you've already played them all, give this one a try. It's a super solid fan-made 3D version of the sometimes platformer, sometimes puzzle game series Bubble Bobble. This time focusing more on platforming, Bub's Big Blowout is just a fun little tribute to the Bubble Bobble series, and if you're a fan of the series, I'd highly recommend checking it out. Code Bunny. This is the second year this one's made honorable mentions, and the full game just came out a few days ago. So go check out the game's download page on itch.io if this looks interesting to you. But yeah, it's like Mega Man Zero, except you can bounce off enemies. If you like Mega Man Zero, you'll probably like this. Swolmo Chow 1 and 2, Gym of the Year Edition. Swolmo Chow 1 is a dumb waste of time. Don't bother. Swolmo Chow 2 is great, and if you like meme games, you should play it. It's still a waste of time, but it's a fun waste of time. The art is funny, the gameplay is basically like Cookie Clicker, so anyone can get into it, and the game takes like 10 minutes to beat, so you're not going to be wasting too much time if you don't like it. Number 1. Tor Saturn. I love the Tor series. Tor Saturn is the third game in the Tor series, a game series all about going fast and making this noise. It's a speed-based 3D platformer featuring a round bird with sunglasses and a backpack. Just look at the footage here. Really, that's all you need to know. If you like 3D Sonic, chances are you'll like this. It's just a really solid game that's now turned into a really solid franchise. I hope Cyactro, Tori's developer, keeps making these for years to come, because I really could just keep playing these forever. They're all just so well made. That's it for this year's Sage coverage. If you want to see footage of me playing the games I talked about in the video, check out some of the past live streams here on my channel. Or if you want to stay up to date on other Sonic fan games or whatever, subscribe to the channel, because I'm sure I'll be talking more about them in the near future. Thanks for watching!